So you don't think then your school would be any more successful if you're only employed native speakers?
I think it might be less successful. I don't think it could be more successful. It might be equally successful. I think the diversity we have on our staff is what is one of the strengths of the course. The idea that there are English teachers here from Macedonia, from Germany, from Romania, from Spain, people from different countries, from Argentina, teaching English, I think is inspiring to the students. That it's not just native speakers who speak English. To the learners, and also they add diversity to the school and the way we think and the way we work, and of course they have strengths as teachers which may complement sometimes the strengths of a native speaker teacher. They're very big with the students, the fact that they've learned grammar and learned the language the hard way, these are often mentioned, but I think they're true.
So how do you select teachers? I mean, what kind of factors do you take into account as a recruiter?
We are a trainer. We run Trinity Cert and DIP courses, so we're looking for people who are qualified, and so we want people to have either a CELTA or a Trinity certificate if they want to start. And in some cases, for senior posts like teacher trainer or director of studies, we want them to have a diploma qualification to illustrate their commitment to good, thorough training they're getting that's going to really help them in their job. We're looking for personal qualities as well, people who are going to fit into the school, who've got a good track record teaching, good feedback from students, and that's it really. I mean, they're where they were born doesn't seem to necessarily come into those criteria. And as I say, it hasn't. Obviously, we look at the way people use language, native or non-native, and we want someone who communicates fluently and accurately in the language. That's obviously an absolute must, especially for people who are going to teach high levels. They have to have a very high level of English themselves.
Absolutely, that's very important. And so, what in the teacher training courses, do you see any correlation perhaps between being a native speaker and being successful passing those teacher training courses?
Well, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, a lot of the non-native speakers we do have on those courses are very dedicated to the courses, I think, for two reasons. One is they feel they have to try harder because they're a non-native speaker and because they've seen adverts in the profession asking for native speakers, so they feel that at a disadvantage and that might make them work harder. And also, I think a lot of native speakers see teaching as a way of travelling around the world, which is fine, but maybe are doing it for those reasons, that they only want to teach for a year or two, so they're not necessarily dedicated to the profession long term. I think non-native speakers, fewer of them see that as a possibility. It is harder for a non-native speaker to move around the world, so as an English teacher, so I think they tend to be much more dedicated, and maybe that's why we've got so many non-native speakers in our teacher training, as teacher trainers and teachers here.
So it seems that, from what you've said, no students really complained about having native speakers in as teachers. From the point of view of recruiting people, you don't think being a native speaker, or the place where you were born makes any difference. So why do you think this, prejudice still persists? And it's really widespread, because when you look at TEFL.com, for example, around 70% of all jobs will be for native speakers only within the EU. That's a huge number. I mean,
yeah, true. And I'm looking around at the schools when I did some research here in Barcelona, in Spain. It's the same. Most of them on their websites at least claim that their teachers are all native speakers, or say they are and advertise them. I don't know, I mean, there was a reason I gave earlier about this sort of going back. We talked about Poland as well, didn't we? In times when fluent English speakers were not plentiful, native people depended on native speakers coming in to raise the level of English in the country, and maybe that prejudice just lingers. I think sometimes there might be some kind of cultural excitement about having a teacher from the country where you're studying the language. So, oh yeah, my teacher, he's from Manchester, he tells me all about life in England. That kind of thing may be something that students value, or at least the schools think that the students may value, or some students may value.
I think
so
if I can, sorry to interrupt you here, but you said, you know, schools think the students value certain things, but because recruiters keep on claiming that students want this and that, but do you think the students have ever been asked what they actually expect from the teachers? Or is it just something that the industry says you want a native speaker or you want to learn about culture?
Yeah. I mean, I think once students are in the classroom with the teacher will be successful by their merits. And as I say, we've had no complaints. So if we're confident we've got a good teacher in there, whether they're native speaker or not, that will be great. I think possibly at reception, when students are booking for a course or inquiring about a course, they may ask the question, are the teachers native speakers, or are they, and I understand that question means, do they have a high level of English? I don't understand, I don't think they always mean it literally. I think what they mean is, I don't want someone teaching me who can't speak very good English. And they use it, the word native speaker, as a shorthand. Our reception staff will say something like, all our teachers are trained to the standard of the Trinity TESOL, they have C2 level, they're fluent users, written and spoken English, and the customers are normally happy with that. But you know, you can see the problem here. If the school or the institution doesn't take the trouble to explain that, they would just, they may feel it's easier just to say, yeah, they are native speakers, and leave it at that, and not even bother to find out what the person asking means. What are they saying? What's their worry or their concern?
And so why do you think should schools explain to students or ask them, do you really mean a native speaker, or do you mean just somebody who's very fluent? Do we as educators, do we have any obligation to explain that to students?
Obligation? I mean, I guess everybody's free to run their business as they see fit. I wouldn't be somebody who tells people how to run their business, but if you want things to change and teaching to improve, I think it does behove the school to make some effort to educate the students, just as they do in other ways. Because if the student comes up at the end of the class and says to the director of studies, you know, why doesn't the teacher translate everything into my language for me? As some students do. And normally the school is very happy to say, no, we don't use that method now, you know, we use a more direct method, a communicative method. Or if a student says, why are we working in pairs and groups? Why isn't the teacher just explaining things to us? These are, you know, you probably come across that yourself, and schools are very quick to enter into that conversation with the student, put them right, if you know what I mean, or at least explain the school's point of view. So why shouldn't they do the same with the nationality of the teacher? I mean, I think we are prepared to intervene and say, this is what we think is the best methodology. I understand you expect us to translate everything, but you know, we believe we're going to do it another way. So I understand you expect a native speaker from England or the United States, but what we've got here is this. People from different countries who speak excellent English and are well trained and are great teachers. Try it and tell me what you think. You know, and come back to me in 3 months if you think there's something wrong.
So we were talking about educating the clients, and do you think there are any benefits in having a truly sort of international language school with a mix of native and non-native speakers? Why do you think this might be a good idea?
Well, I think it's a good idea, apart from the reason I said that it's inspiring to the people learning that there are other people who are not native speakers who have succeeded. That's very important. But maybe more important than that is that English is an international language. It's not the property of native speakers, whoever they may be, or let's say people from England or the United States or Australia or whatever it is. Most of the speakers and users of English are not people from those inner circle countries, as Catherine called them. So if a language school can reflect that, it's going to reflect that English is the property of everybody, the international dimension of it. It's a language of international communication, and people from all parts of the world can use it, and that's a cracking thing to do. It creates a great atmosphere in the school, but it also, I think, reflects what the best of of our profession is, of TEFL is. That's what it's about. It's about bringing people together, breaking down barriers, and facilitating communication, not shutting people out or telling them they can't do something. It's the opposite. So to discriminate against people because of the country they're from seems to be totally against the idea of teaching people English. They don't go together.
I totally agree, and I think it's a fantastic way to end the interview. Thank you very much for talking to me today. It's been a pleasure.
Welcome, Mark. It was nice to